After planet Earth's birth, when it burst up from the central core of energy as a terrifically hot ball, a swirling mass of fire, it began the process of cooling down, hardening, and turning into rock. It was a long time after birth cooling enough to start the process of life on it. The birth of planet Earth coming out of a black hole was observed by other planets populated with evolved souls. Even then, these planets had intergalactic communications, and the birth of Earth was an exciting event, a beautiful, fantastic sight. The ball of fire blazing in the distance was visible at all times for hundreds of thousands of years, until gradually it began to cool. Many more eons went by before the flights to planet Earth began from the Andromeda Galaxy. One of the biggest misinterpretations in the Bible was the misinterpretation of time. The saying that God made heaven and earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, and God said, "Let there be light," etc., came about by the spacemen describing what they saw when they made their trips every 1,000 years or so. The first day, biblically speaking, was the first trip, the second day the second trip, and so on. The first day mentioned in the Bible referred to the first trips from the other galaxies. The Andromedans made the first 2 trips. The first trip was the discovery of the amoeba. On the second trip, they discovered that it had progressed into the upright animal form. These would be the first 2 days, biblically speaking. There was a problem with planet Earth at its birth. There were continuous explosions accompanying the birth of the planet. The gases were expanding in a way that was not normal because they were receiving too much nutrition from the birth hole, which did not close over properly. Had they not been still receiving nourishment from the birth hole of creation, they would have contracted in size and formed individual small bodies around the Earth, and our planet would have had 7 moons instead of 1. The astronomical kingdom began with a cloud of energy made up of the debris which was the remnants from a planet that blew up, mixed with the conglomeration making up the elements. This energy makes up the electrical field or aura surrounding each planet. This is a force field of electrical current. This cloud of energy was present at the birth of the planet and could have been tapped into for an unlimited source of energy. It still can be, but has moved much further away from the surface than it used to be. The atmospheric kingdom began after the formation of the force field with the weather patterns or currents of interaction between the planet's force field and the original makeup of the cosmos. This resulted in some pretty weird results at times. There were times when it seemed as though the sun itself was standing on the surface of the earth. This can be thought of as the same effect that gives the aurora borealis. The prismatical kingdom began with the first faculty of light to become apparent in the universe, which was that of fire at the time of the explosion. This fire was caused by the friction between the outside pressure and the inside pressure. It ignited itself in what we now call lightning. A component of this fire from the lightning bolt was luminescence. Because our planet Earth was the fourth to complete the cooling and hardening process, I will put the date of the beginning of the Earth at approximately 5 billion years ago as the start of the geological kingdom. A better word for this first stage would be the Advanta stage, as truly all was still very hot and soft even 5 billion years ago. The geological kingdom had the rock formations coming into being, and the seas were separating from the land. Then the rocks began to break down into mineral composition. The start of the botanical kingdom could be put at 3 billion years ago. The earth was still very warm at this stage. The botanical kingdom began with the first wisp of grass that grew on the shore of the oceans. This progressed through each stage of evolution for plants. The next stage was that of repollination. These first plants were unisexual, the same as early animal life, although the means to reproduce was inherent within the first stalk of grass. The next change was the root system expanding to allow larger plants to recirculate their juices. The biological kingdom had its start with the actual formation of the amoeba when it was brought in from the central universe. The one-cell amoeba grew in a state of perfection. The atmosphere, the nourishment on planet Earth was just right because it was planned this way. It was like a recipe that was followed while Earth was in the inner planes. So much of this ingredient, so much of that ingredient, a shot of this, it's low in that, give it so many grams of energy from this one. When the evolving animals were found to be standing upright, they were huge in size, what would be termed a giant in today's world. At the same time that they were inseminated with genes, they were also miniaturized to bring them down to the approximate size of the spacemen. The process took several generations. The other animals were also large, but were not miniaturized at that time. Therefore they continued to grow, but the ones who were of the ape family that had been inseminated continued to get smaller. This group was now standing on their hind legs. They were beginning to group together, taking cover from the huge animals. They gathered together to find food and for protection, and they began to form a group consciousness of taking care of each other. They had a rudimentary mind working on an instinct level of procreation, self-preservation, and instinct survival. A new experiment was started on the animal form at this time that is still ongoing today. All of the animals that split the internal organs were artificially inseminated with genes from the higher planets. The alteration that had to take place before the experiment could begin had to do with the internal digestive system. There are minute differences that perhaps our medical doctors and scientists are not aware of. These differences were very minute but necessary because the digestive system is a processing plant, you might say, for psychic energy, for the entrance of the spirit and the disbursement of the energies that the proper use of this divine spirit can bring. It is not, as everyone would like to think, in the brain. The energy center is in the digestive system. When the experimenters from Sirion saw this alteration happening, they began their experiments. They had been through this before and knew what to look for on this planet. These experiments had to do with the addition of chakras. The times when the animals roamed the land was a period when Earth was left without help from other planets because of an event taking place at the other end of the Milky Way galaxy. A new star was being born, coming up out of a black hole like a bubble being blown out of a bubble pipe. It was a beautiful sight and an extremely exciting time period. This was a new planet spoken of in other material as almost being at the amoeba stage now. This time period, when there were no flights to Earth by spacemen, was the time period when the Dark Ages were upon the land. When expeditions returned to Earth after this event was over, it was found to be overrun with huge animals, threatening extinction of this early man. These other animals had become so large they were a menace to all, and the ape men had to hide from them at all times. When the space flights resumed, it was realized that these huge animals had to be dealt with. They had to be destroyed, as they also threatened the spacemen's safety. Many different means were tried, but the disintegration ray was the most effective. This left no large bodies to contaminate the Earth. At the same time, the species of these were miniaturized so the species would not be totally wiped out. Yes, this is possible today, and also it is possible to giantize any species, but why would the spacemen want to? As stated, some of the young were miniaturized and survive today in the mini state. The band of energy, the lightning bolt, solar flare Satania, coming from planet 3, wanted to know everything. They wanted to get into those things that were standing up and grouping together and experience what they saw those things experiencing. We'll call them cavemen, as this is what they had evolved to by this time. But let there be no doubt about it, they came from the apes. Lucifer decided that he would be able to learn more and experience more if the energy was split into individual sparks and allowed to enter the animal forms that were standing upright that populated Earth at this time. Up at the top of this whirlpool, the energy snapped loose and shattered into billions of fiery sparks. This was what Lucifer wanted. Now these sparks could get into some of those bodies, the bigger ones, the ones that were standing on their two hind legs and walking around. Those were the ones the sparks wanted to enter, and every one of the sparks automatically, instinctively knew which of those strange creatures they wanted to go into. The ones walking around standing upright were having more fun. They knew more about what was going on. They had better minds and were more aware. The shattering of the sparks provided an individualized piece of strong energy to enter the more advanced life forms, the ape-man or caveman, if you will. When a few of the sparks tried to enter the bodies of the cavemen, it was a very frightening experience because they couldn't seem to control the thing they had gone into because the animal bodies were much too dense and strongly animalistic. Their hold was so strong that the spirit thought forms trying to inhabit them had to give up because they had no way of controlling the animal nature. Quite a few of the spirits actually tried to go into the cavemen and found there was absolutely no way they could control them. They wanted to control them because otherwise they would just be along for the ride and they wouldn't learn anything on their own. They wouldn't be able to have their own experiences. And this is what this planet number 4, Earth, was laid out for, to experience. But that animal will, or determination, or ego, was very strong, and because the energy had split into all those tiny, tiny sparks, they just were not strong enough to control the animal bodies. Now, had the energy not shattered into such tiny little sparks, had it shattered into bigger globs of the divineness, perhaps those bigger sparks could have gone into the animal forms and been able to control them. The way it was, the energy shattered too far, so Lucifer couldn't come back up out of the animal bodies without some help. In this respect, Lucifer did not plan far enough ahead. He called in help from a brother of his, another central sun from another solar system, who sent this help in the shape of comets. This was electrical energy. Lucifer pulled back up out of the bodies when this help came in. To review, Earth herself is a spirit person, the same way Michael is a spirit person. The spirit of Earth is Lucifer, the son of Michael. Lucifer, our sun, was attracted into the magnetic field of Michael, the great central sun. The planets are attracted to Lucifer, so it is the same thing as grandfather, father, and children. The sun, Lucifer, is imprisoned, so grandfather Michael is acting as the father figure. Therefore, the sun we see in our sky is actually Lucifer. We do not see Michael with our physical eye. He is too far away. This is why we humans were given the great gift of inner vision, so we could see and behold and experience and enjoy the beauty and majesty of the inner world. Picture our sun, Lucifer, as a gigantic brain whose left chamber was just swirling with scientific formulas and electrical components as a most fantastic computer analysis terminal. But keep this sun in mind as a person, because our sun is a person, a macro person, because he is out in the expanded universe. When he comes into us, he is in micro form of electrical energy particles because of the expanded and compressed time concepts. Lucifer is thought of as bad because he is caught in the animal bodies, trapped is a better word, that he wanted to enter and experience. If Lucifer is thought of as evil, then humanity is thinking of themselves as evil, and as thoughts are things, then they are evil. The name of Lucifer simply must be cleared of the reputation of evil. Lucifer is truly the beautiful spirit that is beginning to rise up out of the animal nature of humanity to claim its birthright. The more that awaken to what has happened to Lucifer, the more quickly he can leave the animal bodies. He cannot come out of them until we do, because we are Lucifer. The curiosity and daring of Michael's son Lucifer got him into the predicament that he is in now, that of being trapped in the animal bodies, that intrigued him and captured his imagination and caused him to determine that this was how he wanted to experiment and people his planet. He is the true prodigal son, and his father gave him this planet because he loved him. He cannot return to the light until we do, because we are him after all.